I think we'll get started so that we can have lots of time for discussion. But thanks everyone for joining and also for making it at the right time. There was a last minute glitch with Zoom that hadn't updated it to British summertime when the clocks change on Sunday. So great that we're all here. I just wanted to give a very quick overview of the agenda for today. I was going to give a very quick introduction to IMPETUS for those of you who aren't familiar with the project. And then we've got a kind of very brief overview from our 4 projects that are speaking today. And then we're going to have a bit of a panel discussion, and then there's time for questions from the audience in the last kind of 20 minutes. If you are thinking of questions as we're speaking in advance of that Q&A session at the end, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll come back to them in the last section. So just very briefly, I'm Alex and I'm based at Nesta's Centre for Collective Intelligence, where we think a lot about different methods to strengthen the relationships between communities and institutions to solve societal challenges. If you aren't familiar with Nesta, it's the UK's social innovation agency. It's a not-for-profit organisation focused on positive social impact. I've included a link here to our Collective Intelligence Playbook, which is full of tools and tactics and methods to help design and deliver projects. So just as an interesting resource for you. But more broadly, what is IMPETUS? So for those of you who aren't familiar, IMPETUS is a 4-year innovation program to support and give recognition to citizen science by enabling a wider range of citizen science initiatives to access innovative funding. We have a strong focus on enhancing citizen scientists' contributions to the Green Deal and the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And we support citizen science initiatives through 3 open calls, selecting initiatives based on kind of expected impacts, volunteer engagement, inclusion, openness, and the quality of the data. We also have set up an accelerator that provides an integrated program of support and training and mentoring and other resources. We've also launched the EU Prize for Citizen Science, which is awarded to citizen science initiatives for outstanding achievements. And then we're also working towards shaping EU policy in and with citizen science. So we do this through kind of horizon scanning, action research, policy briefs, these webinars and other workshops with policy stakeholders. And the aim is to foster more citizen science data to inform evidence-based policies and to identify future directions in citizen science policy. So before I hand over to the 4 initiatives to hear more about their work, I wanted to introduce the topic for today's webinar, which is around social inclusion in citizen science. So we understand citizen science as an approach that involves the active participation of members of the public in voluntarily contributing to research, including by asking research questions, collecting or analysing data, and using the results. So citizen science is promoted as a way of contributing to the opening up of science through participation of a wide range of different stakeholders. But a challenge that's often levelled against citizen science is that it's the same people who get involved, often those who are highly educated and who can afford time to engage in participatory activities. And whilst data on demographics in citizen science, the demographics of citizen science participants is often quite limited, some initiatives struggle to engage kind of underrepresented or vulnerable groups. So one of the fundamental principles of IMPETUS is the recognition of the importance of inclusivity and diversity in creating an ecosystem where citizen science can thrive. And the accelerator initiatives are supported to engage particular target groups and to track participant demographics, amongst other actions, in an overall drive to address the issues around inclusion and diversity in citizen science more broadly. So I'm going to hand over to each of the 4 initiatives that we have speaking today to very briefly introduce their work and to give a bit of context before we have a discussion between the panel. I've also asked them to share what social inclusion means to them, and there'll be time for questions at the end. So yeah, I'm going to hand over to Stefania.
Hello, Alex. You can hear me, correct?
Yes.
Hey, hi, everyone. So my name is Stefania Konomu, and together with Katerina Zhur and our Web2Learn team, we're very happy to present today our work in the Acting for DHH project. Alex, if you can move to the next slide, please. First of all, we would like to thank Impetus for the kind invitation, and we are very happy and honored to present you Acting for DHH, which is basically a project that targeted deaf and hard of hearing individuals. So at Web2Learn, we ideated this project and we implemented in collaboration with the Association of the Deaf of Northern Greece. And we tried to empower this community through citizen social science. Now, to give you a concrete overview of what we did for 6 months in this project, well, we understand empowerment in the sense of inclusion of the deaf and hard of hearing individuals in society. And how we did that, how we tried to understand and expand this, well, we aim to promote interactions between deaf and hearing citizens, which is something usually missing from these 2 groups. And we aim also to raise awareness about accessibility issues in public urban spaces. In concrete terms, in terms of quantitative data, we had 5 activities in the project. We engaged with 60 participants. The majority of them were deaf and hard of hearing. We produced 25 videos on DHH and hearing interactions. And we mapped 10 public spaces in the city of Thessaloniki, which lacked accessibility for this target group. The project ran from June to January. Of course, you can see more information in the website. Alex, next slide, please. Now, also in terms of target group and the strategies we adopted and the outputs we produced, well, as I said, deaf and hearing individuals were the people we aim to engage during this project. Now, to have them engage throughout this creative process, we applied co-design and co-creation. So these people feel really owners of the action. So we, and I will also say a few more things later with the questions and the discussion session. Well, the idea was to have them being directly involved in the scenarios of the videos that they produced. We had 25 videos that depict this interaction between deaf and hearing individuals. And all these videos are accessible on our website. You can also scan the QR code to find out the videos. And we also created a zine through the drawings that the deaf citizens created by drawing what it means for them to be active citizens. So we really used art-based techniques and practices to help them express themselves, express their needs, and feel like this project is for them and with them and for their benefit. And last slide, Alex. Now, you asked us what does social inclusion mean? And I think that for us, social inclusion is a world where there is no need for social inclusion. And I think I brought this statement because we should always remind ourselves that all the ultimate goal of all these projects we do for inclusivity and accessibility should really result in this. So this is our ultimate goal. So not just doing inclusivity projects for the sake of inclusivity in general in theoretical terms, but our goal should be always there in front of us, remind us that we need a world without, reminding people of social inclusion. I think I'm on my time.
Thank you so much. That was extremely to time. So yeah, brilliant. So now we're going to hear from Katia. I'm going to hand over.
Thank you, Alex, and thanks you for inviting us. My name is Katya Gorov. I'm from the University of Twente. And I would also start by saying thank you to Impetus for their support and for the funding of the Map for Ec project, in which we engage temporarily displaced children from Ukraine in the age group between 10 and 14 years old into the exploration and mapping of public spaces for recreation. So the core activity was fieldwork. They were using the EpiCollect form to input photos, video tools, but also ratings of the perceived attractiveness, safety of places, as well as elements that they disliked and the transformations that they suggested. The project took place in Twente, that's a region in the Netherlands, and ran in 6 cities, 8 cities in the summer before. And usually we had our fieldwork in the summer and autumn time during the good weather that afforded biking for fieldwork. And the core motivation was to understand how displaced children perceive of their new home environments, but also importantly to understand how citizen science, place-based citizen science, can contribute to place attachment that is known to be associated with well-being among refugee and temporarily displaced persons. The image on the right quickly shows the outline of the project in 2023. And while fieldwork is central, you can also see that we embedded co-creation, where we jointly designed the data collection protocols with children, but also engaged them, for example, in design thinking micromodule, where they ended up designing an ideal space for recreation and importantly, an inclusive space for recreation. And one of the feedbacks that we got in 2023 was that at some point feedback becomes a little bit monotonous. So that brings me to the next slide. And that brings me first to the bottom, where you can see the photographs. And what we did in 2024 was co-designing a game that was a bit of a hybrid game. But we had a lot of quests that we designed jointly with children, and you can see the set of photographs on the left that represent the co-design process that took place both inside but also outside through neighborhood walks. And then on the right, you can see a set of pictures that show the diverse quests that were there, that included both, for example, nature exploration mission, but also contact with the locals, where we encourage children to talk to the local people and find out more about their favorite recreational spaces, well, and a number of others, which I cannot delve into due to time limit. So our co-engagement strategies were, again, the co-creation in the sense of ownership, from data collection protocols to project elements co-designed by children. Then we also noted that it was important that children had a feeling that they were collecting actual data. So there was a sense of doing something useful, not just for this common map that we created, but also, for example, for OPS Identify, the local biodiversity database. It was important that children had space for more responsibilities, those who really wanted to could become project ambassadors, and they were closing event facilitators, they were leading workshops. We organized an conference at the end of the project, and then they even produced the video for the project this year. And then what was also important were, of course, rewards and acknowledgements. They got certificates from the university. And what we also noted, one engagement strategy that worked particularly well is the diversity of tasks and materials within the project. So everyone could really specialize in a task that they were keen on, whether that was working with sensors or whether that was fetching water from the river to get a sample of water animals. That brings me to the next slide. My definition was a bit longer than Stefania's. So to me, social inclusion through the prism of the Mapping for Recreation project is not a checkbox, but rather an ongoing process of creating spaces of belonging. And this process unfolds on multiple scales and dimensions, as captured even by these few illustrations that and frameworks that we rely on a lot in our project. For example, we started the pilot at the step 5 of Hart's ladder, where children were informed, but were basically just participating and assigned with tasks. Now we are on step 6, where children are sharing decisions with us. And I truly hope to live to see when they probably come up with their own projects and we will just help them. I also highlighted here that this process requires planning and consistent action, of course. For example, we had language barriers and other challenges that we had planned for and overcome, but it also opens, one also has to be open for chance and a lot of improvisation, and I actually hope to address that in the discussion session. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Katja, and also for sticking to time. So next I'm gonna hand over to Lena.
Hi everyone, my name is Alina Poze, and also I will start with a thank you for having the opportunity to be here and to tell you a little bit about what we've been doing in Laulmiere Library in Latvia. So I come from a library, which is a town library. It's not a city library, but I wouldn't also call it a small town, something in between. We are a regional main library, and we have 31 branch library. And so we did a citizen science project together with all of the libraries in the region, where we collected and documented local place names. And just a quick overview of what would be the place name. So it could be a house, it could be a square in the town, or woods, or a tree, or just a spot somewhere in your local area. Anything. It could be literally anything that you have a specific name for, which is the name that you are using, not specifically a name that's on the map, but which is very local. And yeah, it was a national project. There's a database in Latvia where you can add the place names, and the project was starting a few years back already, but we really wanted to join in and kind of put a lot more words on the map. So we used this as an opportunity for talking to our readers, to our society about citizen science. We did quite a bit of work, and we're still working on this. There's been already 3,000 new place names added to the database. And what was very important for us to kind of merge citizen science topics with local heritage and with something that we're already doing in the library. Because for libraries, it's very hard to do something extra out of something that we're already doing. We don't really have the capacity to do that. So we need to kind of integrate that into something that we're already doing. And this is local heritage. So this was very important for us for this citizen science activity, and also, of course, about raising awareness about citizen science and also building capacity of our staff, because we hadn't really, we're very, very, very new into the citizen science world. Yeah, we can go to the next slide. And our target groups were mainly seniors and teenagers, which would also be some of the groups that aren't really that much involved in citizen science. So the seniors were mostly collecting the place names, giving us stories and pictures about the places, and just giving really the content. We did storytelling events and individual conversations, and kind of gave them the sense of belonging when they come together with stories about the local places. And the notion of them just contributing to something bigger, the notion that they are giving their knowledge to science is very, very motivating. And then teenagers were more adding the place names to the database. They were learning a lot more than, I would say, the seniors, because we would give them lectures about citizen science and about language and how the place names evolve through time. And we also co-created a place names exhibition with them. And yeah, we worked with the database. So for seniors, it was a lot different to include them than it was for teenagers. And I'm open to discuss that later on as well. So we can go to the last slide. Yeah, and about what social inclusion means to me in my library, I think it's very broad to to just answer this question. It's not an easy question, but I would see that through the library, and just as the library is adapting to all of the needs of the target audiences, any group that you need to include in something is just adapting to them and trying to kind of speak to them in their language. So that would be for me the philosophical and the broad spectrum of what social inclusion means to me. Yeah, so seniors, that would be talking to them a lot, a personal touch, just listening and things like that. And for teenagers, you need to be more active, you need to be fun, and you need to give them valuable information, because they will not stay with you if it's meaningless to them. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Alina. That was great. So I'm now going to hand over to Aspasia.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Is everything okay with the sound?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for inviting me to be here with all of you today. My name is Aspasia Tassiopoulou. I'm also a librarian. I come from Greece. I have been working at the Public Library of Veria for almost 30 years. The Public Library of Veria has been quite popular in Greece and in Europe, and we have organizing so many events all these years without knowing that we do citizen science as well. And thanks to the great team of Public Libraries 2030, we have been involved to a European project about citizen science, and we have finally realized that we have been doing citizen science for many years. In our library, after the award that the library received in 2010 from the Gates Foundation, the award named titled Access to Learning Award, we have created new spaces at the library, and we have been doing events and workshops with our weather station, with the telescope, with we have now a seismographer, beekeepers projects, and much more. But today I will talk to you about a very nice cooperation we have with CERN. We all know about CERN, the research institution in Switzerland. For the past 3 or 4 years, we organize for Greece the particle therapy masterclass, which is presented for high school students, and it is focuses on the application of physics in medical treatment. It is a 1-day-long workshop. It is very interesting, and people all around Greece love to take part on it. We invite people and students from all around Greece, and we have more than 300 participants every year. We have online conduct 1 day long with CERN. We talk to the scientists. We talk about what people can do with physics. We talk about how to treat cancerous tumors as they are practiced at the German Cancer Research Center, DKFZ. And we give to the students the opportunity that when you study physics, you can not only be a teacher, but you can become a very important researcher about the treatment of cancer. Can we move to the next slide, please? So as I said earlier, we focus on high school students aged from 15 to 19. And their educators. And this is quite important for us because we receive their feedback and we give them a different we give them access to new skills and new opportunities. And for us, it is very important that, because as I mentioned to the other slide, to my next slide, it is very important that we provide equal access to all, like every library do, equal access to all, to give opportunities to all people, to all citizens. And our motto is what we mentioned on the last slide, that knowledge is power. And I don't want to spend your time. Can we move to the next slide, please? No. So I think
Sorry, there was no last slide. There was just 3 slides.
okay.
I'm sorry.
So our motto is that knowledge is power, and this is what we live and what we see every day in the library. So knowledge is power for us. That's why libraries should play a very important role to the everyday life and to citizen science, and they can provide a big knowledge on that. So thank you very much. I will give you my email and the website of the library, and looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thanks so much. And thanks everyone for keeping to time. So yeah, we wanted to have a bit of a discussion now that you've heard about all these amazing and quite different projects. I had some questions that I wanted to ask. Firstly, around kind of engagement levels, and how, engagement levels are often a challenge, particularly in terms of sustaining engagement. So I'd be really interested to hear how each of you kind of tailored your projects to user friendliness and to the specific needs of your target groups. I think you've mentioned very briefly some of the strategies that you'd used, but it would be great to hear a bit more. And also how you managed to kind of sustain engagement with your target groups. I don't know if anyone wanted to jump in first, or we can go in order of the projects, if that's easier. Well, yeah. Stefania or Katja?
Okay. Yes. Shall I go, Alex? It's okay?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. And sorry for my connection. I'm connecting from outside. So if the sound is not good, just let me know. So from our project, as I said, I think it was important for us to identify the kind and the type of citizen science project we wanted to deliver. So in our case, citizen social science provided a valuable basis to build a project that speaks to the reality of this target group of deaf and hard of hearing people. Actually, it was like the first time that this community had the chance to speak about its needs and to see people really interested in identifying what are the accessibility barriers in the city and what is their everyday interaction with hearing citizens. So it was the first time for that community to gather in a group discussion, map all these issues, and express itself. And here, as I would also like to emphasize, co-design and co-creation are keywords, because we let all our workshops with the community have had open agendas, so people felt free to direct the discussion the way they preferred and to emphasize the topics they wanted to talk about. So they really felt the ownership of what we are doing, from the scenarios of the videos, from what they wanted to depict, from what they wanted to draw. So we just helped them to define the context, the framework, that this is about social well-being, this is about your rights and how you are experiencing your life in a community together with hearing people. But then it's up to you to define the way you want to express that. So I'm sorry for taking much time.
That's great, thanks. Did anyone else want to come in, Katja or Elena?
I would be happy to comment again on the perspective coming from these children, citizen-sized engaging children. So I think with us, the core success in terms of engagement lay in the fact that they were really listening to children. So it's again a lot about co-creation, but really embedding everything that was feasible to embed. So of course there are restricted resources, etc. But we really, I think, successfully reacted to any suggestions. So whether that was, for example, in terms of tools for data collection, at some point they thought that filling in scientific journals individually was not such a fun activity. So we came up with recorded in situ focus groups, or when we were co-designing elements of the project and asking them, okay, how could we make this project more fun? They had this idea of having a joint trip, because otherwise the teams were scattered all across the region, and we organized one joint trip for all the teams together to the national park, where they could meet and exchange, just meet each other basically, because this sociality is a really important part of the project. And it was really still good to see that if you're using some tools that are easy and adaptable, so the kids were really actually very fast to pick up technology, and they were working with 3 different types of applications because we could not build different structure for the whole game. But with some of those tools like Ops Identify or Epic Collect, they could really very fast see their progress. Oh, we just mapped 15 places. What did the other team do? So they could see the progress of each other and could see the fine species that were found by another team. So that added this engagement component of seeing what the others are doing or have done.
Yeah, that's really interesting. The flexibility and adaptability, but also the technology.
Yeah, if I could continue on the topic, I just wanted to mention the seniors that we were working on our project. And I think a very good thing that helps to engage older people are just locating the small communities that are already kind of involved in some things, and they really want to be active. They have time, they want to do stuff, but they just don't have the knowledge or the information of things that are around. And what we found was a small group of seniors, about 10 or 12, I think, very, very active ladies, already in their older years, and they really enjoyed just going on trips, having field trips around the local area, and they started to map all of the place names, and then actually started also to add everything in the database. They learned how to use the database and the computers and everything. So they just need a topic that you give to them, like a reason for doing something bigger, something meaningful. And yeah, if they find what they're doing is very valuable to others, then they keep doing it, and they like get very excited about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think it's interesting also like how you locate those existing groups and how you find them.
Can I add something
Please do. Yeah.
Yes. For us, it is very important to communicate. I mean, even though the public library of Veri is a small library in the north of Greece, we have contact schools from all around Greece. I mean, for a whole week, we have contact all schools all around Greece, in each island. We tried to find students that love physics, because some of them didn't know, and they have been asking so many questions to the scientists of CERN. I mean, communication for us is the key. We have reached small organizations that are about physicians, physics, and so on. And that's why as they tell us, it is a successful workshop, masterclass, because we managed to gather 300 students from all around Greece. And I would like to tell to our attendees that this is a part of a master class that happens all around the world. So I will find the link and post it on the chat, okay? Because everybody can be part of it. And
Great.
free and easy.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And yeah, please do share links in the chat so that people can follow up. I was also kind of interested on that point as well, I guess. The libraries projects kind of highlight libraries as a place for citizen science that's open to kind of everyone. And I was interested in hearing a little bit more about the biggest barriers to building kind of successful engagement strategies to include diverse groups.
Well, I could the biggest barriers are sometimes, well, there's two points that I would like to say. I don't know if I will get to the second one, but I'll start with the first. There are a lot of these groups around here in the town and in the region that could be involved in a lot of the projects. We have ethnic minorities and immigrants and other groups. But it is very, very difficult to get in contact with those that are more active, like the leaders of the groups or anything like that, because you can sometimes just meet someone and talk to them and give them opportunities or anything, and kind of give them like adding to the project or come and meet with us and do something, let's do something. But rarely it leads to anything, very rarely. And it's very hard to just find those people that are willing to participate and willing to do more and be active. And for us, for the groups that we could find and locate and start working with them, they are very, very busy already, and they don't really have time to get involved with another project or another thing that people want to give them. For example, for Ukrainians here, we see a problem that everybody wants to work with them. Like it's sometimes even too much for them, and they just say no because they're working on one project and another project and the third project, and everybody kind of feels like they need to integrate them and they need to do this and that, and they actually have a bit too much of all of this. That's some part of it. Of course, that's not for all of the people. But the other barrier that I just quickly go over is communication with the youth, the teenagers, and that's a very large issue, because we really want to join with them and do a lot of things with them. But for our project as well, we did a lot of these good things of co-design and co-creation, but it was very, very difficult to engage them and to maintain their involvement in the project. So if anyone has good ideas, I'm open to them.
Thanks. Did anyone else want to respond? Yeah, Stefania.
I feel the same with Alina and all speakers and their experiences. I'm happy to hear from the other project as well. Beyond these external barriers, the typical social barriers, most of the times we all encounter in our citizen science project, and we usually also aim to identify and map through these projects. I would also like to bring another kind of barriers, which is internal ones connected to the citizen science practitioners, to us as researchers being engaged in a citizen science project. And this has to do with our own biases. So we should not take into, let's say, be a given that we are all very, inclusive and open at first, okay? We should adopt a co-reflexive process that will allow us and the group to regularly reflect on all the biases and how we move on the project and how we perform in the project in terms of inclusivity and accessibility. So I strongly believe that this co-reflexive process is fundamental to ensure inclusivity. We should not be 100% sure that because we have this good intention, to do a great inclusive project, this automatically translates in an inclusive project. We need to ensure we have the mechanism for ourselves as well to reflect and to question what we did, our steps, and how we move forward, and if this is really inclusive and accessible.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point. And there's a kind of responsibility to also like build in the time to do that reflection and to yeah, to do the thinking. Were there any other responses?
Yeah, if I could add a little bit to that, because that's a very valid point that resonates very well. The reflection part, because I think now we've been with this community for 3 years, and after each campaign, we always think, okay, what has been well, as usual, which lessons have we learned? What can we do better next time? And something that comes up every time, as much resources that we allocate for really this community building, there's always something coming up where additional time resources are needed. And to be truly inclusive, coming back to my presentation where I said that this is a much more complex question, we are already working with marginalized, not marginalized, but a minority, cultural, linguistic, who are also coming from a very vulnerable situation. So we have to adopt all the tools. There are translations involved. There are volunteers involved who maybe speak 2 languages at least. But then with this community, there is again a lot of, for example, children with special needs and with special interests. And there we also quite often have to react quite in an improvised way. For example, we had a few children with special needs where we adapted the badges and found some specific roles for them. And that was back in 2023. And now we pick up on this practice, and this has become part of our strategy to be ready and to keep an eye on that, whether someone could do some task that is not foreseen within the project, but could be easily included. So reflecting after each campaign, I think, is a very important, note to oneself. And building trust is really something that takes time. This is something that we encounter every year. And if you bring new volunteers, parents might be somewhat reluctant because they already knew this small team of ours. So they trust their children to us when we go on field work. And there are a lot of volunteers who would love to chaperone as well, but they probably can join for 1 or 2 days. And that's just not enough to build long-term relations and to build trust. And so this is one very time resourceful moment. And another one, if I still have time to just mention, is that when you're working with vulnerable communities, their whole situation is a lot in flux. So we try to plan a little bit, okay, we will have fieldwork during August and part of September on these or those days. But sometimes our team comes and none of the children are there because they spontaneously left or had someone come over. So there is also a lot of these unforeseeable circumstances coming into play there. That was my small contribution to that part of the challenges. Thank you.
Thanks, Katja. I'm conscious of the time, and I can see there's lots of comments building in the chat that I haven't had a chance to check. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and just check the questions in the chat.
So just to fill you in on the chat a little bit, there's been a lot of sharing of knowledge, lots of questions have been brought up, but a lot of them have been addressed by the community as a whole. So a few of them might have been addressed. So it might be worth just getting people to raise their hands, I suppose, just in case they still have questions.
Great. Thanks, Chris. That's really helpful for me. And yeah, I can see there's a lot of sharing. So that's brilliant. Yeah, did anyone have any questions that they wanted to ask to the panel? Feel free to unmute or raise your hand. And
I could start if no one else wanted to.
thanks, Claire. Yeah.
I was really curious, especially for Alina and Aspasia. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I thought your context for libraries is really, really interesting. And I wondered, did you feel or did you get information from your community that the citizen science practitioners were not addressing something, that there's something that these communities want or they need because you're, you know, at the pulse of these communities. So I'd love to hear if there's something maybe we could be working on or we should be thinking about.
Well, for Latvia, at least for my region, I think the term citizen science is just very new. So people have been doing this monitoring or, you know, just calling it different and doing these hobby activities before. But the term and the just the general understanding of what that means and everything is very, very low. So for us and during the project, it has been more about just telling people about what it is and explaining and learning about it. So maybe these questions I could answer a while later. Yeah.
Can I share my experience from Greece, from Veria? Okay. As I told you earlier, the Public Library of Veria received the access to learning award from the Gates Foundation, and we had money to create new spaces. So since 2015, we have a maker space at the library. And for many years, we have been organizing events about robotics, with 3D pens, 3D pens, 3D printers, Arduino, little bits, action cameras, and so on. And people were expecting us to do more because the whole idea about the library in Veria is that we want to give opportunities to children of a small city. I mean, people in Thessaloniki and in Athens, which are the big capital cities in Greece. Children and students have the opportunity to see these things, even though they have to travel a lot and to pay. So for us, it's our everyday life. People were used to see those services in Veria because we have been involved in different European projects in the past. For us, it wasn't something weird. We just didn't know that this is citizen science. And thanks, as I said earlier, to Public Libraries 2030, we have been involved in a citizen science projects and libraries, and we saw that libraries are doing amazing things all around Europe. In Denmark, in Latvia, in Slovenia, they have a seed library there. So I'm sure that libraries can do great things and they can give opportunities free of charge to the public. And for me, it's very important, especially to isolated places. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Are there any other questions that anyone wanted to add? A lot of discussion in the chat around sharing resources and definitions and things. So yeah, we'll be sure to share the slides, but also to share the links from the chat.
There was a question earlier on about compensating for time. Like, how do you get people initially involved, and should there be financial incentives for getting people involved, or are there other means of keeping people interested in participating, I suppose?
Do any of the speakers want to respond or reflect on kind of compensation? Yeah.
Just to complement with the responses already with which the citizen science project, we always argue whether they should be all voluntary totally or be some kind of remuneration. Now, remuneration can take many forms, and I agree with also recognizing the skills and the knowledge and the experiences of practitioners and participants is also important as a motivation and as an engagement trigger. So, for example, in our case, we issue open badges, and we did this also in the Acting for the Age project. So we issued open badges for participants, for deaf people, that they could use and display them on LinkedIn. So it was a direct way for them to communicate to the world and to people let people know that they have participated in this project, they produce this kind of result, they gain this kind of skills, and this can be publicly recognized beyond the direct outputs of the project. And finally, just a remark, I think also that volunteering is a good, that it showcases the value of doing citizen science, especially for community projects. So in our case, I would say when the project really speaks to the community, there is rarely the feedback that then there's a need for remuneration, because you have people really being engaged in the project because they see that this project is for them. But also, I would just like to say that it depends on the time that participants dedicate in the project. Of course, when we have people being fully dedicated, spending much of their time on the project, etc., if it is a demanding project, of course, we should not skip the question about remuneration. So giving this space for discussion and finding the best solution.
Yeah, thank you about that, Stefania, because in the project, for example, that they are encouraging the participation of local participants to be very active in the project, example, from the beginning up to the implementation and then up to the end. So thank you for sharing.
If I may quickly add to that, because at starting working with children, we thought that they're more rewards oriented and would want to have some tangible, really sweets or whatever. But then it was interesting to see that they were more answering to the certificates from the university. So it was really important for them to make sure that the name written in the right way, because I think integrating in the local educational system and the local society, it's really important for them to show that they have been already part of this system and have contributed something meaningful to their community. And then despite that fact, we are still as a team always asking, okay, can we give still something to this community? And then when we're coming up with the ideas for the rewards, it's never us thinking out of the blue, oh, let's just give this or that. We're always thinking together with children and sometimes with parents, also asking them for advice. And with us, it became a practice of doing something more experiential, like organizing a farewell trip somewhere, or organizing a farewell excursion or something where they can get together, learn again something new, rather than getting some financial in any other form rewards.
I was just going to jump in. I was struck by a comment that you made in the introduction, Katia, around the importance of the children like collecting real data, and the kind of like how that was also really rewarding or kind of important for them as well. That's maybe slightly different to kind of reward, but it's like the importance of.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was also, they really found it meaningful, but you had to reinforce this, because with us collecting data on their perception, it does not have a clear follow-up, right? It's not, there are no clear and fast actions from the urban planners, for example, changing the spaces that we explored. So there we explain clearly to them that these are just the inputs, and we are building this way of work so that your voices are being heard in urban planning. But with something like collecting data or probes for the water, or measuring or collecting data through Ops Identify, where I could show them the emails from the administrators when, for example, some observation was not accepted, and explaining why. So they really get into the idea that they're collecting important data for Mother Earth, so to say, for nature protection, and because they're so still naturally inclined, and they're drawn by nature and everything related to insects, etc. This is for them, a really important component.
I can see a really active discussion in the chat around the differences between citizen science and PPIE. But I think we've got time for one more question, if there are any other questions from the audience.
Just having a look through the chat. There was talk about example, like people who are very new to citizen science, not knowing what it was and learning that they're doing it, but there's been a bit of a discussion about that. Well, I'm welcoming hands up if anyone does have one last burning question, but there is one from Stephanie Organ about the definition of, or good examples of co-creation and co-design, perhaps, or yeah, I think that might be quite an interesting question just to close off, I suppose, just how you approach co-creation and co-design.
I could start with that. And I think that there's not enough time for that. There are so many exciting methods. So I'm generally inspired by design thinking approaches. So when we are, for example, this usual diamond brainstorming and choosing. So oh, now I forgot it for a second. Sorry. Divergence and convergence. So with us, for example, we come up with this round robin where children write their ideas and then put the idea to the neighbor, and then he adds up. So that's one a brainstorming approach that they really like. And then what our community, again, children really like is then also voting, and then secret voting on the options, so that it's really they come and they put sticky dogs on one of the options and then turn it back again. So I would generally just suggest diving into design thinking methods in that aspects. There are a lot of different techniques that can be adjusted to a specific task at hand. Because of course, when we were co-creating quests, for example, for the game, we chose a different approach. We partially also relied on the convergence and divergence techniques when they were thinking of how can we design a quest so that we talk more to local people. But then an important part was also a neighborhood walk, when they were primed by really geographic objects to think more in an environmentally embedded way in situ, so in the environment. And so that was a completely different methodology targeted for more spatially explicit situation. But design thinking world was a big opening and inspiration for me personally.
So much. Unless any of the other speakers wanted to jump in with any more thoughts on co-design, I am just going to share a link to our next webinar, which is on the 30th of April, on the topic of citizen science and women's health. And so you can register there. And we're also producing a policy brief, which is coming out very soon, around the topics we've discussed today. But yeah, I just wanted to thank all our speakers for the fantastic presentations and for sharing such practical kind of suggestions and recommendations. And yeah, hopefully see you at our next webinar at the end of this month. And yeah, I'll be sharing the result, like there's lots of links and resources. So I'll share the slides and the resources with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, IMPETUS. Stay in touch.